Alright, we're gonna start the day with some Batman. I did not have a good night of sleep. I might have gotten enough sleep. I think together it was a full night-ish, kind of. And I got pretty good sleep the last 2 nights leading up to this, but last night, not so hot. So I'm not sure how this is gonna go. Yeah, I wasn't gonna start the stream at 7 a.m., but I kind of realized at about like 5:20 or something that I was not going to get back to sleep. Yeah, I think technically I started the stream at 5:55, but I may have not started playing until about 6. Either way, we'll just call it an even 6 o'clock, and I'll go until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Ugh, that sounds really terrible right now. But then again, I've still got NyQuil in my system. Hopefully that's why I feel the way I do. So he just out and out kills him in the video game. Just punches him off the roof. Oh, shark! What do I do? We're at 7 o'clock now, when this thing was officially supposed to start. Oh, jeez! Oh, NyQuil. Is that a snake? What the crap? Oh! Oh! Everything die! Oh my gosh, I'm gonna die! Oh! Oh! Oh my gosh! Oh, jeez Louise! Ah, good gravy. Like all of creation rose up against me. I was getting nervous about today, thinking about it yesterday. For the first time yesterday morning, I was getting up, I was like, oh man, am I really up for this? I'm just getting older every year, and 38 is not old relative to the average human lifespan, but it's old enough. I'm still waking up a little bit. The NyQuil is fading, I can tell, but it still has a solid hold on me. Just not the vice grip I started out with. Hey, hi to you, good morning. I have that sound effect. I have that one, too. It's so weird to play video games and watch movies after building up a sound effects library. You get to know these sounds so well, and that you just hear them. You pick them out really easily in TV and movies and video games. Strength and purpose, baby. And I would say baby at the end of that sentence, even if I was playing as Green Lantern. That's not a sexist thing. Right, says hi to you. You don't believe me, huh? Favorite Green Lantern. Favorite non-Green Lantern. This is actually on the +2 page of many topics. So rather than wait to roll it, I will talk about it right now. The topic I actually have on here is why Green Lantern is the best superhero. And for me, it's because of the concept. It's because of the concept, not the character. As long as it's written well, it can be a story about Hal Jordan, Kyle Rayner, Jon Stewart. I don't care. It's the idea that imagination and willpower are the only limitations, you know? That he can basically replicate the superpowers of virtually any superhero using his ring and his will and his imagination. So there's just so much potential there, and as someone who has always been a creative type and an imaginative type, when I found out there was a concept of a guy who could create anything he could imagine, I was like, yes, that is the perfect fit for me. But I don't think I do very well in the willpower department. So I'm not saying I'd make a good Green Lantern, but I really was drawn to that whole concept. So my favorite Green Lantern would be, I guess, just whoever's being written the best at the time, you know? I mean, whoever Jeff Johns is writing. When Jeff Johns took over with the book, starting with Green Lantern Rebirth, he did some neat things with all of the Green Lanterns that I really liked, especially Guy Gardner. Guy Gardner, in that run, Peter Tomasi, I think, was the other writer that was handling, doing the Green Lantern Corps book. And between Jeff Johns and Peter Tomasi, Guy Gardner was suddenly a character that I liked and I understood more, and he just wasn't like an immature, like, jerk. He wasn't annoying anymore like he had been when I would see him in Justice League, the comic book in like the early 90s. I kind of understood more about who he was. As far as like like my favorite non-Green Lantern, like superhero character, I assume you mean? Once upon a time I would have said the Spectre. That was my favorite run of a series for a while. That's been replaced since by something I'm sure that... oh gosh, what's the name of that writer that I always say could write the phone book and make it a compelling character drama? Gail Simone. Probably Secret Six is my favorite series now that she wrote, the pre-52 one. But now I think I'd probably say The Flash. The Flash has always been, I think, a really close second to me with Green Lantern. At the Copacabana. Paper and pencil RPGs. I really got into paper and pencil RPGs in college. Well, until college I played one game of Dungeons and Dragons, but I mean, growing up, you know, it was a taboo in my house. I wasn't even allowed to watch the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, which now years later I've purchased that entire, you know, it's only one season, but I bought it and I've watched it through with my boys and they love it. And you know, and my parents have grown over the years in their discernment, and they wouldn't put up a fuss about me playing Dungeons and Dragons. Now they know I've played it with my boys, you know. But at the time there was just a lot of ignorance about Dungeons and Dragons, and there was a lot of voices in Christian media, you know, like TBN, that were saying this stuff is evil, keep your kids away from it, and that kind of stuff, you know, and speaking out against He-Man and Masters of the Universe and stuff. But I can't remember how I got introduced. I think I discovered in junior in junior high, I accidentally bought what was an expansion to the Marvel Superheroes RPG. I was bummed to realize, oh, this isn't like a game by itself, I can't really do anything with this, but I still read the whole thing, and I was fascinated by this type of game and what this could be. And so then I moved on to other things. I played board games like Hero Quest, which was a precursor to my RPG days. I think it was after high school when I, had a job for the first time, a part-time job working at a movie theater, and I could afford to, buy stuff for myself, not rely on a parent's allowance. And so I discovered it in a comic book store that I frequented, this old copy of first edition DC Heroes, the role-playing game, put out by Mayfair Games, and fans of that game system refer to it as MEGS, which stands for Mayfair's Exponential Gaming System, because it had this nice AP system built into it, which stands for attribute points. Everything in the game was time, weight, defense, strength, all was measured in APs, and it had a benchmark thing that would tell you how much you could lift with 2 APs of strength, but the capability or the measurement was exponential, so 3 APs was twice the value of 2 APs, and 4 APs was twice the value of 3 APs, and so on and so forth. And you used you used 2 D10s for all your rolls in the game, and consulted a chart that was really easy to reference, and so it was a cool system that allowed for simulation of just about anything you could think of in a really consistent and logical way. It was an easy system to run. There was just one table basically you had to look at instead of a bunch like you might have to look up in some editions of Dungeons and Dragons. So DC Heroes, I love that system, the MEG system. I used that for years and ran a number of groups. Actually, mainly one group, but it just kind of had a little bit of a revolving door in terms of who the people were playing, that were playing in the group, and then that group dissolved around the time I was married, and then years later I started another one that actually was not a superhero game, but was the Matrix. I actually used the MEGS rules to run a Matrix RPG for some guys in my church that were kind of also newlywed guys. But anyway, I just love paper and pencil RPGs. I love all the potential. I really enjoyed running them. I even enjoyed the amount of work that went into writing my own adventures and prepping and stuff. There just came a point where I had other things going on in my life that I couldn't afford to spend all that time doing all that prep, and so that's why I started to get into board games. But I still have up on my shelf, eventually I'll probably get to it in my bookshelf tour, I have an entire shelf that is bending the board that supports it, filled with RPG stuff, and like more than half of it is DC Heroes stuff. I have every edition of the rules for that game, nearly every product that was ever released for it. So yeah, then I got into board gaming for a while, and I did eventually try to get back into, with the board gaming group that I kind of developed, I did eventually try to get back into running an RPG with that group, and I tried it one night, and I just remembered all the reasons. It's like, yeah, I just don't want to do the prep on this. I love playing in an RPG when I get a chance, but usually, just historically, I'm the guy that has to do the prep and run the game if an RPG is going to happen that I'm involved in. That did change. A couple of years ago, there was a guy that has now kind of aged out of the college 20s group that I served in, and I just ended my time actually serving in that. I'm transitioning over to some men's ministry stuff. But he runs a Dungeons and Dragons group, and actually got introduced to role-playing because of me and the board game night that I had at my house. And so he's invited me a few times to go over and play with them, which has been a lot of fun. And I get to play a crotchety old nasty wizard named Elter'S, who longs to take over the world and see everyone weep tears of joy that they may bow before me. Oh, I did buy the latest edition of Dungeons and Dragons now, and I've played a few sessions with my boys. And I just bought like pre-generated campaigns to play with them, and it works pretty well. And I'm able to kind of dumb it down enough for them and keep it from getting too complicated, yet still scratch a lot of my own itches. But I've played some one-off games of the Marvel role-playing game, the original one, not the card-based system or anything that might have come after that. Rifts, I've still got a Rifts rule book. I've never run it myself, but I played a couple games of that. I played a Ghostbusters and a Men in Black RPG, and then I bought a fantasy when I went to Gen Con for my 30th birthday. Geez, 8 years ago now. I bought a copy of a kind of a smaller press game called Eldritch, which was a fantasy RPG, and that's the one that I tried to run with my group, and I really like that system. But I can totally see myself getting into playing Dungeons & Dragons more as my boys get just a little bit older. That'll make the prep time just a little bit more worth it to me. It's still fun to play with them, but it's, you know, there's still just some differences when playing with kids compared to playing with adults. Oh, jeez! Oh, crap! Oh, crap! I did this wrong! Alright.